a great time of the year to do something like this. So this
Oh,
is me.
perfect. Good. Well, I guess let's just dive in by first letting people know a little bit about you, how you got started, where you come from. You just moved here. You have an amazing journey and story. So let's just start with that and give people a little background on you.
Sure, absolutely. So I got into music at a very young age as a tuba player. Quickly found out through going to University of Miami that becoming a professional tuba player wasn't in the cards for me long term, but meant that I found another avenue of the music industry that I really loved. And so went to the music business school and entertainment industries there in Miami, and spent a lot of time learning about copyright law and international music publishing and general record company industry. Learned quickly that I was getting a history lesson on what the music industry would be formally known as, even though it was currently in practice.
Yeah.
And very, very quickly was realizing that the 4 years of education that I was getting got me through about 2 weeks of my first job working at Warner Chappell Music Publishing.
Oh no, that sucks. I can really relate to that. It was like that in between time where they're teaching you old stuff and you're like, okay, so you're at
Yeah.
Warner Chappell, right? Interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And the thing, I say 2 weeks, but really it taught me the vocabulary. It gave me the full language of what I would spend the next 10 years really diving into. You know, still fairly young and loving everything that I'm doing. So after some time at Warner Chappell, started a new music collective out of Brooklyn, working some amazing young bands that were on the up and didn't know exactly how to monetize their sound. They were touring really, really widely, even as great as seeing Europe, and having a great time doing that. And they'd come home from the European tours where they had thousands of screaming fans to crashing on their buddy's couch and working at the local coffee shop because they couldn't figure out what the next step was.
Wow.
So we, through a number of connections here and there, were able to find some advertising placements, got them to craft their music that wasn't going onto albums and take their Brooklyn sound, their authentic Brooklyn sound, and turn it into a syncable piece of music. And
Wow.
really give advertisers who were trying to rip off their sound, quite frankly, they're saying, oh man, I saw this killer band Twin Shadow the other day. Like, we need to have something that sounds like that. And instead of, having them rip it off, we said, hey, here's the guy who writes Twin Shadow's music. He'll write the music for you now. And in that process, found myself recruited by Ogilvy and Mather, an advertising agency in New York, and I spent 5 years putting music to ads for all of their brands. That's from American Express to IBM. We had NASCAR for a while, which was super fun. Some high-end brands like Tiffany, and then some kind of out of nowhere brands like working on Depends and Kotex, and interesting combination of tech to sports to just general products. UPS, for example, working with them to rebrand their whole sonic identity to a jingle that probably lots of people know. And so it was a really exciting time, and from there found my way over to the West Coast, where I'm now working with Netflix as a manager of marketing music clearance, and doing everything from placing music in our trailers to simply negotiating and clearing all of the music across everything from social to marketing to partner marketing to a wide scope. And I focus on our series for global reach.
Wow. There's so many things I want to say. You've really like followed so many doors as they've opened. You've been so resourceful, and you've seen that like come up for you in the successes that you've had? Well, first of all, just like starting the collective in Brooklyn and understanding, how to bring in what advertisers need and also what these bands are doing and helping them bridge the gap there is so powerful. And like maybe before, people were catching on to that. So of course you're going to get recruited because you've caught on to like what's working and how to help these artists. And I think that so many artists on this call can really relate to wanting to figure out those pieces. And you were just like, I'm going to do it. I'm resourceful and I'm going to do it, which is awesome. And Ogilvy and Mathers is huge. So what an amazing experience. And now that you're like doing clearance, I can't even imagine what that looks like for everything that you have to do. Now I want to dive into what clearance really looks like and how artists can make sure that their songs are easy to clear and how, from your end, how that would work. But just in general, how does a day-to-day go at Netflix for you now that you're at Netflix and you're doing clearance and supervision and you wear a lot of hats and you guys are growing like wildfire?
Yeah, it definitely is a day-to-day experience, sometimes an hour-to-hour experience. I think I shocked someone just yesterday. They said, "Hey, what music are you looking for today?" And I said, right now I'm looking to replace a piece of 90s rap. And 30 minutes later, I needed to find a mariachi version of a theme song. And I mean, that's like a pretty wide spectrum from like in literally 1 hour of time, all of my focus was about 90s rap to finding a mariachi band locally. It's like pretty incredible. So to give an average day might be a little tough, but Netflix is an extraordinary place in that we have a very open information policy internally, and so we are all tasked with and expected to have a pretty good grasp on the business in every angle. So a lot of my day is spent going through meetings with all of the various teams to understand what's happening and what's happening next. What have we done previously, and what are the metrics and data that we have to support those findings, and how is that going to impact our business moving forward? And so, first and foremost, this company was based on getting DVDs into people's hands. Mm-hmm. So it was a physical product industry, and then it quickly became a tech company that was based on creating a place for videos to stream on a huge scale. And it's still very much like a tech company in that regard. And only recently, within the last 3 years, has it shifted into a global entertainment company. And so those three kind of pillars of the organization are all constantly being worked on, and they're constantly evolving. And so I found myself joining the entertainment side of that mostly. So I spent a lot of my day learning about the tech piece because I don't have the coding knowledge, and I love hearing about how we are creating individual happiness for customers and consumers just through technology being so simple and so streamlined and easy to access in any format. So a regular day could include anywhere from 4 to 8, 9 hours worth of meetings, and somewhere around 200 emails to answer, and probably in a good day, just under 100 pieces of music to clear.
That's crazy.
Now, thankfully, a lot of that music clearance is on cue sheets that come in bulk format, and we're making just literally that much marketing content for all of our titles. And so a lot of times those cue sheets are filled with one library who's got 40% of that music. So it's not like 100 conversations of clearance, but sometimes we're dealing with 2 major pieces of music every day, and each of those pieces of music could have upwards of 4, 5, 6 owners on it, depending on how many writers or what style of music it is. So that's the bigger, broader scope, and how that slots into my daily regimen is like, yeah, all of that stuff is going to happen in a matter of 10 to 12 hours. And so just making sure that I can stay fully engaged through all of that is the biggest challenge.
That's such a great overview of your job and how it works, because I think Netflix is a little bit mysterious in that, you know, we're like, well, where does the music come from? How is it cleared? There's all these shows, and you have content you're creating, then you have, you know, the different aspects of it. So that's really helpful. And how does that work with the songs that are getting placed? With the creation, you guys are creating content now. So are you also picking those songs, or do you have outside music supervisors picking how does the process go for each of those shows? Or networks involved here? How does that?
Yeah.
Or not each one, but like in general, you know.
Great question. And it's going to be a long answer. Before I do that, I just saw PG's over here, and yo, what's up, dude? It's been a while. How are you? I'm starting to scan to see who's like on the screen. So
cool. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Anyway, so let's go through. So I work on the marketing side. We are divided, the music team is divided into content side and marketing, and that's for all of our original content. And so the content music team is working with and hiring music supervisors on a freelance basis to fill out all of the in-show, in-film music, which is a daunting task, because since we started making original content, we have doubled the amount of original content annually, and that trend isn't going to stop. So it really becomes exponential. And so that team is pretty big. Oh, sorry, I hope I didn't destroy my computer. That is like a pretty daunting experience for them. And as a result, the marketing team is doing just as much. I mean, yeah, there was just this morning in our weekly marketing meeting, they made a kind of a joke that like, hey, you know, I remember when we launched our first show, and we said, can you imagine if we're going to launch 2 shows in a single quarter? And now we launch 5 shows a week almost. I mean, or it feels that way. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe I'm exaggerating, but like they couldn't fathom having to market 2 shows in 3 months, let alone how much we're doing. And so the team is growing in a huge way. So to answer your question, we are heavily leaning on a lot of the partners that we work with to create the content. Trailer houses in LA and all of the music supervisors that work there are our biggest resource in that regard.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so they really drive a lot of the upfront creative in terms of how we're selecting our music to handle the bulk work.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to our higher priority titles, myself and Andy Likens, who handles all of the film side of this, I handle series, Andy handles the film. We get called in to work on the spots creatively. And sometimes it's oh my gosh, all they gave us was Beyonce at the trailer house. Please help. Like, there's no way we can clear Beyonce. And then other times it's really early in the process, and they're like, we want the next, you know, we don't care that Taylor Swift is super famous. We want the next person that is going to speak to that same age demographic and is going to have kind of like a dark, broody feel to it, but really is going to speak to, you know, women between 60 and 30. And those are like the really fun, interesting projects where we get to kind of flex our networks and our creative muscles, because that's where Andy and I both come from. He's a musician himself as well. And so we love those challenges, and that's becoming more frequent as our team is growing. So we envision that we probably will hire someone again. We'll probably add a 3rd person, maybe a 4th person over the next few years, just by virtue of how big the company is becoming. And
Yeah.
each time we add someone, we'll get more involved with the creative piece, hopefully because we'll be able to handle the massive amount of clearance that happens.
Wow. I feel like your job is so fascinating. Every time I talk to you and hear about what you're doing, it's like you are in the middle of, like the cutting edge of what is working: music, clearance, placement, content, from social to movies to series. Like you're really like right in the eye of it all. And it's fascinating to hear like what your job is all about. We've had a couple questions coming in, so I'm just gonna shoot on over here. Sherry says, "Does Netflix have composers on staff for their original series films, or how does that work when you have composers for your content?"
Sure, great question. We don't have anyone employed by Netflix, so like truly on staff composers. We hire out freelance for all of that work, and a lot of the time, particularly for like in show or in film, those people are being vetted by the music supervisor that is hired to kind of run the show, and so they're not specifically, from Netflix.
Okay, that makes sense. Awesome. Maestro says, "What types of music do you search for the least?" You search for the least. And two, when you find 100% one stop, do you really like to do often return the same ones? I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. Maybe you can rewrite it. Let's go back to Debbie. She says, "If I heard it clearly, 40% of music comes from libraries."
Yeah, totally. So we have a few libraries that we have as we've created some blanket deals with. That changes annually, dependent on kind of what a lot of the supervisors and editors around the industry are asking us to have. What they find to be the most valuable, who they're working with, who are being the most progressive, and so that changes from time to time. I mean, in the past, we've worked with companies like Audio Machine and BMG Production Music and Elias and Extreme, some of the bigger names.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we don't restrict. If you are a composer and you're writing for any of these libraries, which I highly recommend, if you are just churning out, like you have more music in your brain than you can possibly you know what to do with, finding a deal with a library is, I think, a pretty valuable place to get some of that extra, just get it out of your brain kind of a thing. I know, for me, when I can clear my head of everything that's in there that can help help me be more creative on stuff that I'm really passionate about. So that's just that piece of advice can work for some. It's not going to work for everyone. But I find that we work with every library. There's from APM to smaller local shops like Pusher, who does a lot of custom work, but they're also amassing a library at the same time, to places like Synchronic and High Finesse.
That's great.
The list
great names.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that gives a lot of insight to the different types of companies that are out there.
Yeah, there's just so many, and it's such a wide spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to find who you like. Yeah, and how they price their music and how they work ownership and all of those things. It's a huge spectrum. It's just, there's tons and tons of competition out there. So anyway.
Yeah, but that's great. We talk about that a lot, and just finding one that works for you and what direction you're going for, and knowing that there's a lot of different options out there. It's not just 5 companies. There's so many different companies that offer different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Cecilia says, "Does clearing mean that other people find music and have to bring it to you to approve it?" Maybe this is a good time to actually just go through, what clearing means.
Yeah, absolutely. So music clearance in general is obtaining the rights for the use of music. I think that's the most basic way to describe it. And in doing that, It generally comes with a fee, and sometimes it doesn't. But as a musician, we hope that you're being paid for your work. So my job will include finding, so I'll get a cue sheet with a list of anywhere from, like 3 or 4 songs to 50 songs that include sound design and all the effects and background hums and bits of underscore and all of this stuff. And so my job is to figure out who owns the music. If it's owned by a single place, a one-stop place, going to them directly and telling them the rights that we need for it, whether it's internet only or we're going to broadcast it on TV or radio. What are our territories? Are we mostly worldwide? And how long are we going to use it for Netflix purpose? We always get perpetuity rights for the service, which is a locked piece of the internet, right? You have to be a subscriber to access our service. So in a lot of cases, that's a unique rights ask for us in terms of for the term itself, because you don't always want to give away perpetuity rights for like everything, like all media, but for a locked service like that, we require that. And then once I've found all of the owners of pieces of music, on the publishing side and on the master side, then negotiating with all of them and making sure that they get paid and that they're in agreement with us using the music.
That makes sense. Yeah. So let's see if more questions come up around that, but I think that was a really great description. Katie says, does the US creative team also work on placement in Netflix foreign series like Cable Girls?
Great question. Yes, we do. And the LA office is our main office for all of the content and original work, but we have regional offices as well. Our marketing team is based out of LA, and we are expanding into our other territories. We have an office in Amsterdam, we have an office in Singapore, an office in Japan. We just recently opened an office in India, and we are expanding all over the place, truly becoming a global organization. But with that being said, the clearance work is all coming for music is all coming through Los Angeles. We don't have anyone regionally in those markets yet. So there's really just 2 of us doing all of it between Andy Likens and myself.
That's incredible. You really are seeing like the mass of music coming through, what's getting placed, what's working, so what would be your take on, I guess, really for your shows, you're looking for everything from A to Z, and if Z kept going, there'd be more. Like you just have every type of music that you need for your series. But are there any like specific markers that you would point out that tend to work more for placement or not, in your opinion? Or maybe this is more like from the ad world. I guess you probably have more on the ad side.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. From an advertising standpoint, we very rarely use the lyrics. Lyrics would only get used if they were writing the copy of the advertising. And so in those cases, many times we'd use the lyrics. We would make something custom and ask them to include specific lyrics, or we would rewrite and make a parody. Like for UPS, we made a parody, and those lyrics became kind of like the backbone of the whole campaign for like 5 years. Yeah. So one marker is ensuring that if you're making your music, you also have readily available and well-mastered splits that don't have lyrics. I mean, that's like a big piece when it comes to advertising. When it comes to Netflix and the trailers that we're working on, the only markers really are quality markers. I mean, I'm rarely going to pull from a demo something that sounds like a demo if I'm working on placing for a song. Now, if I'm working with you directly to create a custom piece of music, I love going back and forth on demos and like working through the little details. But if I'm looking for an already made piece of music and it's in the demo stages, I'm probably not gonna give it enough consideration just because it's a volume game for me, in those moments. Unless unless I'm specifically coming to you for custom music, and that's a totally different conversation. So quality is huge, and ensuring that when you feel like someone else is hearing your music, it sounds great. Because anyone can make music that sounds great. It might not be like well crafted music, but it can always sound great, right? I mean, there's enough technology to make it sound great. So that's like a big piece for me.
That's huge. That's huge advice, because I think, we see a lot of that in the class with submissions, really being able to discern what is like the quality, the high quality, versus like, is it there yet? Or if it's not, how do you really break through that noise, and knowing that that quality is such a big piece of it. Nobody's going to write you back and be like, you're almost there, like, this is cool, but unless you're giving extra feedback that day, but it's just not going to work moving on. So that is such a good specification.
Yeah, and something that we see a lot more now, we're seeing a lot of remixes of songs, and that's something to be cautious of, but something I'd also like to encourage, in that taking a great piece of music and making it your own version, giving your flavor to it, is definitely a powerful way to get your name picked up again for your own music.
Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope. You don't want to only be a remix person. You want to make your own music, and that's like pretty important, right? But at the same token, showing your producer chops and crafting another wonderfully made song with great lyrics, like a classic that's clearly a beautiful song, and making it something that could fit into a trailer, and angling it towards a specific type of trailer. For example, I worked on The Crown season 2 recently, and we remade an old Flamingo song and had a remix made of it, and it really came together beautifully. I Only Have Eyes for You, and that new version of this song was spectacular. I mean, really, really interesting. But it was a genuine remix using samples from the original. And the caveat here is ensuring that you have already opened a relationship with the owners of the song before you start remixing it, because you don't want to run into a scenario where you've made this incredible version and then the person who made the song first says, nope, not allowed to do it. Sorry, it's not my version. Do not license. And that almost happened with this version of the Flamingos, and we had to kind of do some massaging later in the process. So it's a caveat that, like, it could be a wonderful way to really get your name seen, particularly on cue sheets with local places, like a trailer house, for example. Like, an editor really loves the remix that you made of a famous song, and then your name pops up on cue sheets a little bit more, and then you get remembered for someone who's a talented producer.
That's great. That's great advice. I love that. Thank you. We have a lot of questions coming in. They're just like,
sorry.
So, is on-demand and entertainment division still separate? Is their music clearance handled in the same way? Does that make sense? On-demand entertainment divisions.
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow that question. We have two, as I mentioned before, we have two sides, and I work on the marketing side. We have in content, and then we have marketing. So I work on all marketing materials, whether it's something that we've made originally or we're licensing from someone else.
Okay. Given that Netflix is data-driven tech company, is the creative effort different there compared to other places? Is there more data-driven decisions for the creatives to use, etc.? Data nerd, she says. Sherry.
Yeah, there really is. And it's one of the most fascinating parts of Netflix on a bigger scale, is that it is such a data-driven culture. And we are taking information about, like, what people are watching. How long are they watching it for? Are they completing episodes? Are they completing entire series? Are they stopping at a certain point? Are they watching it within the first 24 hours that they signed up? Like, was there something that influenced them to become a member? I mean, we were using all of these bits of data to understand what's effective and what's not effective. And that's informing decisions like, hey, was there a great series that the fan base was super, super passionate about, but you know what? It just wasn't getting watched enough. And so we don't have enough support to make a second season or a third season. And those are informing those kinds of decisions that are like broader scope decisions. From a music perspective, we're not really using data that much, but we are listening to fans as well. Like if we made a blunder on a choice musically for a trailer, you know, we definitely pay attention to that, and we have consumer insights teams that are constantly kind of monitoring what's being said.
And that's fascinating. Yeah, I'm imagining that there's so much data that you guys get to pull from, and that you are so educated because you're looking at all sides of the business too. Netflix is an amazing company for that. Maestro says, so do you prefer, well, I guess just in general, do you prefer one-stop songs, or does that make a difference to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone would. If there's too many owners, that can be a deterrent to a song being cleared easily. As you can see just from me describing earlier, it's such a large volume that it can be daunting to have to say, okay, this one song, which is part of a long list of songs that I have to talk about today, is going to take 5 times as much time as the rest of them.
Yeah.
So that's a deterrent, without a doubt.
When you first started helping the bands you worked with in Brooklyn write and produce music for Sync, what was some common feedback advice you found yourself giving the bands to get their songs ready to pitch for Sync? And does that advice still apply today in the work you're currently doing, or how has it changed?
Yeah, absolutely. Your music, that is truly your music, that you are producing for yourself and displaying and portraying for your own creative output, is the music for which you should retain yourself and your own like image, and be bullish about what it sounds like. And when it comes to making music for a sync, remove all of your ego and realize your opinion can get in the way of success. Now, that's not to say don't give suggestions and advice from your expertise. I think there's a distinction there. And I found that some people have actually killed a deal for themselves by having a little too much of an ego about their own music, and they're less likely to win the sync, particularly if they get FaceTime. And not everyone, you know, when you're working with a company like Catch the Moon, you've got someone that's kind of balancing that relationship for you. But sometimes you're going to end up working directly with someone who's making decisions on the final product. And in those moments, removing your ego from the conversation is huge. And I was working with, you know, guys in their like mid to late 20s who were like all about their art, and they were really strong about retaining their art. And I respect that for their music that they are putting out there. Mm-hmm. But for the moments of us, like, you know, getting them a second source of income and monetizing their art, this was an important distinction. Like, hey, we've got to leave the ego at the door today. Like, we're not going in to make your album.
Amazing. So good. That's a fantastic way of putting it. Thank you for sharing that. Debbie says, did you do the music selections for the Get Down, and will there be a spin-off from that series?
I did not. I wish I did.
The inside scoop.
I did not. Oh, I wish I had. I got to work on it from a periphery because it was before my time working here. Those things get worked on so far out in advance, and I just hadn't started at Netflix yet.
Sam says, great advice. Everybody's very appreciative. Let's see. Do you generally gravitate towards commercial sounding tracks, or is there a need for indie music, which is on the electric or poetic side?
Yes. Need for all types of music. Is there a need for X? The answer is always yes.
That's great.
And
quality X.
Yeah, exactly. Be great at what you're great at. The jack of all trades, everyone, here's a sad reality, is that everyone who's making decisions for music selection has their jack of all trades person already through a relationship that they've built.
Mm.
If you are making a new relationship with someone, be great at something. And truly put that out there as being great at something. Because when you're great at one thing, that's how you're going to start to develop the relationship. And you'll be known for that great thing, but you can show that you're also good at other things over the course of time. So always lead with what you are like, this is my superpower, or this is my, my superstar quality.
I think that's such good advice. I think a question that comes up is like, well, I do everything. Should I just send them a big playlist of everything I do? And I'm always trying to find those words where, it's harder to wrap your head around that and to make a direct contact with somebody when you're like, I don't know where to put you. But if you are really good at what you do, lead with that. And that advice is like, can be applied to so many questions on this panel. I mean, for these students, I'm sure. Okay, we have 100 questions, it looks like, more like 35, but it looks like 100. And I want to get to some songs, so I'm going to go through a couple more questions, and then we'll share some songs with you.
Okay, sure. I'll also start reading through questions and see if I can.
Okay, yeah. You answer the ones that you feel like speak to you.
I love that someone went through my website and found the underwearness spot. That's hilarious. Yeah, we went in there for Depends, and they asked us to kind of like get off the beaten path and do something wild and crazy. We made some really, really silly radio ads that were just like off the wall, like personification of genitalia. And that was the spot. It was unbelievable and so funny and thoughtful. And then we came around to making a rap about folks like, don't worry about incontinence. It's something that a remarkable large percentage of people are going to deal with in their life, and that's fine. And so it was, let's find the easiest way to make it a approachable topic of conversation. And it's like, there's no reason to be embarrassed by it. And so, yeah, it was super fun to get to do that. And we talked to some local writers in New York at the time who wrote a couple versions. And then that's one that was kind of given to me as like a full creative spot. So a few versions back and forth of writing lyrics before we cut it down to that. It was super fun. Along with, there's another spot in there that's about like duck toilet cleaning products. I've had some silly jingles that we've had to work on over the years. That was another one. If you find duck toilet cleaning and you hear the quack, let me tell you, the quack was the most controversial part of that entire experience. Anyway, we'll go on.
I love hearing the stories. I like the background stories.
Okay. How do you get involved with different like shows that you really love? Being knowledgeable about your potential. Wow, I'm so sorry to shake my whole computer like that. Being knowledgeable about what you are pitching can be the determining factor of whether or not you are selected for something. Because if you come in saying, I love the show, I've watched seasons 1 through 3, and it's been an influence on how I make my music, and I think this music will fit for season 4, that is going to grab my attention for season 4 without a doubt. And so if you are passionate about something, including that can be the difference maker, and that can make you jump off the page. Always worth saying stuff like that and being genuine about it, and don't be ashamed about giving a compliment because you think, oh gosh, they probably get compliments all the time or whatever. Like, if you really are passionate about it, like, say it, because it's great. And you might find out that you pitch someone that is also passionate about that show, and then you start like talking about the intricacies of that, and before you know it, like, all your music's in there because you built this great like personal one-on-one relationship. So
that's priceless info.
Priceless. That's what I'm
yes.
going for.
I just have somebody writing in, they can't hear, or they can't hear.
So, not sure I completely understand that question. Are you queuing up some tracks to listen to as I'm trying to dig through some of these?
I actually have one ready. Are we ready to jump in?
Oh, okay. This is actually a great, like, bigger question. How long do you listen to a new track before you decide whether it's worthwhile to listen further or a no? Oh my gosh, great question. If I am looking for inspiration, I am listening to songs for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I'm listening to a vast majority of the song, and that's just like playing in the background as my inspiration, and I'm trying to get my like thought process moving. And that's if like someone said to me, "I don't know what we want to do for the next Stranger Things. Like, have any ideas for like cool '80s music or whatever?" If I know what I'm looking for, I will tend to give the song 10 seconds up front, and then I will try to skip forward, nudging forward until I can find where it changes, assuming there is a change, and give it another 10 seconds. And then I will always try to listen to a button or an ending, or is it a fade or whatever, so that I know, does it already have the goods to be chopped into a smaller usable thing, or is it not usable? You know what I mean? Like I need to know a couple different things. Is it the right tone? Is it the right tempo? Does it have multiple sections, and how does it end? Like I get all of that. So that can amount to anywhere from 10 seconds of listening to 30 seconds of listening. Because sometimes within 10 seconds, I already know, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Thanks for breaking that down. You're amazing. You really are. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your insight. It's really like beyond valuable and insightful. And okay, here is a link to our first song. We can see how you go through a song in real time. This is from Celestial Blue. She's on here. And yeah, so your feedback is just, you know, would this work for sync? Where would this work for sync? Is this quality high enough to grab your attention or not? And, you know, what would you change? Brutally honest.
Sure.
Did you see the link? It's at the very bottom of the chat.
Oh, there it is. Sorry. Now I'm going. Now what happens? So I download it, and it's not going to play out loud?
It's going to play for you.
Okay, great.
And if we can't hear it, that's fine, but as long as you have good quality.
Sure, okay.
And if it doesn't play, we can figure out another way of doing it.
No, I've got it. I'm listening to it right now.
Okay, we'll let you listen. And then for everybody else who wants to hear it, the link is there and they can listen too for themselves, as long as they're muted.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. I listened to the first 90 seconds. Great. So I guess my first, in listening to it, I'd want to know first, you know, why was the song written? What was the purpose behind it? Are I would want to know, like, was it written for you as an artist? Was it written for a sync? Was it written as a songwriter intended for a different artist?
No, I wrote it as like a togetherness song. It turned out a little cheesier than I wanted it to be, but I wanted it to be my platonic togetherness song for you know, because it's slower, it's more film TV oriented, hopefully. But
sure. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Definitely gives that vibe. I would. It was recorded in the box. Yes.
Yeah, I worked with the producer in Australia, so I recorded here and then he did production there.
Cool. Okay. So like that is apparent. You can tell that it's not all live instruments.
Yeah, because of the strings specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can tell that it's very much like a bunch of synth and plugin situations. So from a like, is it done yet? I don't think so. If you think it's done, then I would consider this more of a demo in terms of full quality compared to what else you'd listen to in this genre and what's out there already.
Yeah.
So when comparing it against something else, it doesn't have the polish that I think would ensure that it gets listened to fully.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of done because he won't work on it anymore, and he won't give me stems.
I don't think that's really a problem. I think you're in a pretty good spot lyrically from where you want it to be. You want it to be that platonic song, and I think you're right on that path. I think you can also take this, maybe bump it up a little bit in terms of a BPM, and you might get a little bit more out of it. I think it drags a little bit as a ballad.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. That's fantastic. I think that's really helpful, and thank you for being straightforward and honest. I think that's so exceptionally helpful. And just to clarify, Cecilia says, do you not accept songs that are programmed, only live instruments?
No, not at all. I that was just a thought on the quality. I mean, if you were going to produce in the box, make it sound incredible. Yeah. That's why I was asking, what was it for? Was it in a demo phase? Was it going to be recorded with live instruments? I don't think you'd ever release that song with those strings on it, just because it's very obviously like you're using string pads.
Yeah.
Right. If you were going to put that on an album, for example, you would absolutely want to go get in a studio, even with like a small little quartet, and get them to record the strings live, because they would give it so much more pop and authenticity to actually be on an album. Whereas if you were just going to be doing this and it was going to be a sync and a placement, and I was really into the lyrics and I wanted to put it into something, I would still go and hire some string players to fill it out, because if I really loved the progression and hit all the emotional cues, I would want it to really pop when it was synced to a video.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I just posted Ozzy.
Okay, great. While I'm queuing this up, I saw a question about Ultimate Frisbee.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Thanks so much for mentioning that. I love, yeah, that is my passion on the side. That is something that I really love doing.
You like travel all over doing it.
Yeah, in 2016, I got to play with Team USA in London, and we won gold, which was like something I love to say because it was like the biggest moment of my professional sporting endeavors. It was great.
Woo!
It was super fun. Anyway, thank you for finding that out. That is super cool that someone found out. Okay, so there's 2 songs in this link. Which one am I listening to? Evan's Flow, Take Its Course?
Oh, Evan's Flow.
Evan's Flow, okay. Sorry.
It's an instrumental.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa. Wild. Okay, I jumped around so I get a full vibe on it because how long is it? It's like just under 3 minutes. Okay, cool. Good. Wow. It is I don't know what genre it is. Which is exciting because I don't think I've heard Celtic lounge music before. Which is what it made me feel like. It felt like we got to the middle and the violin solo came in, it felt like Celtic lounge. Rad. That's something that I would need a very specific, like we're making a Highlander spinoff for, and it's got to be super specific, which is great because if I ever wanted Celtic lounge, which I've never heard before, we have it now. It's not my, like, I'm not going to put it on my iPod because it's like not my jam, even though I'm a redhead. But yeah, cool. I'm not sure what else to give on that one besides,
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think like having it be so specific is really cool.
Yeah, cool vibe.
Hey, so I don't know if I could say anything.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I actually happen to be online this time. I'm in 3 meetings at the same time, so I really wanted to make sure I got a chance to first of all say hi to you, man. Glad that I was definitely checking you out for the ultimate frisbee stuff. I think that is so cool that you are into that
cool,
kind
man.
of a thing,
Thanks.
So and it's cool that you play. So I didn't know if you're actually going to the ultimate frisbee championships over in Illinois.
I did when it was there previously. I actually came in second. My team came in second place the year we were in Illinois, so we got silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super
That's
fun.
cool. Right on, man. That's awesome. So no, that particular song, I write all different kinds of styles, and that's one that I play violin. I'm a classically trained violinist, and
Cool.
a bunch of other instruments too. But and I thought that was just a cool, fun piece. But I also thought it could be like in a commercial. Tell me this. I was aiming that more towards like that action type of commercial, that really quirky action. 'Cause back in the day, you used to do a lot of commercials. I don't know if that's what you do more now, but
yeah.
I was aiming it towards like that action, quirky, like Staples commercial where they're like, hey, we got to move and Staples is the place to be and that kind of a thing, right? So that's where I was kind of going with that. Do you think I'm on the mark for that?
Totally. Hey, so if that's the place for it, totally, right? And here's, I can see the fast cuts of a 30-second spot where there's people running all over the place and there's a frantic nature to it. And this will give that feeling. And then you're like, oh wait, who's our lead character? It's this violin voice. If from a production standpoint, if I was going to give any advice on it, it was a little jarring how smooth and compressed the beat was compared to clearly you clicked on a live mic and you rocked out on the violin. Find a way to weave it together so that it doesn't feel like here's a violin solo on top of like a lounge track.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's
so
good feedback. Sure.
Yeah, the violin is part of the lounge track.
Yeah.
Rockin'?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that, man. Thanks. Rock on. Thanks.
Of course, Alice. Take care.
Awesome. Okay, so number 3, we have Sherry Lynn. I just posted her link there, and the song is Have You Noticed the Season? And yeah, let you jump in.
Sherry Lynn's right there. Also, I'm looking at Sam. I got your message, man. I'm sorry I didn't respond yet. I do plan on replying to everything that I get. And yeah, I'm going to share my email as well. Sana asked me about that earlier, and my little spiel on that is I get 15 or so outreaches of music daily from people that I already know, and then maybe 5 daily from people I've never heard of, and I have no idea how they got my contact anyway. And that's not including LinkedIn. That's like direct to my work email. So you hide those 20 emails and the 200 I get that I have to respond to because of work, and I get to them. I keep them unread until I can respond to them, and I'm like a junkie about responding to all of my emails, so I get to it. So I will give my email and we'll stay in touch and keep a dialogue. I'm going to go on. Have you noticed the season? This is what I'm going to.
Yes.
Cool. Lovely intro. Really, really nice. Okay, cool. I have gone through about a minute 20. I'm just going to jump to see how it ends really fast. Cool. I was hoping it would do something like that. Great. Really nice. You said it's from Sherry?
Yeah.
She yes, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Oh, hi, Sherry. Wow.
Hi. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, totally. I loved it. It's a original holiday song?
Yes. I co-wrote this with my partner who's a little camera shy, but he's here. Yes, it's an original. We wrote it as our first holiday song that we tried to write last year.
Cool. So I love thinking about music in its genre and how it makes me feel as a like juxtaposed to that genre. And it's so rare to find, I don't know, a lot of holiday music can be a little abrasive because it kind of gets shoved down our throats by radios and everything for like and advertisers for like 2 months, right? And we're just on the other side of that. So for me to immediately feel this like warmth listening to a holiday song after it had just been shoved down my throat by media is like a testament to you know, how warm and lovely that song is. Really,
Thank
really
you so
nice.
much.
Yeah, and stealing the fa la las in the middle as a little hook. I might make a couple tweaks in the middle just because of how they're like moving in tandem a little bit. It was a little jarring for me at one moment, like right around like 1:15. But I loved that it was kind of the button at the end because I immediately was thinking of advertising when I was going to put it somewhere, if I was going to place it to a spot, and thinking of anything from like, you know, a holiday car commercial to you know, a holiday Target commercial to anything like that, and having that stripping away a lot of the other elements that were making it lush and beautiful and having a little la 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 at the end, kind of broken up like that, gives it an opportunity to for an editor to do something fun visually to match the tempo and the pacing of the little syncopation in there. So really, really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, we noticed that Netflix did a bunch of Christmas original content last year, and I was wondering if you had any opinion on how good a fit this would be for something like that. I know there were a bunch of Christmas movies, and we watched a few of them while we were writing the song.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's one of those things totally worth pitching along to music supervisors, the freelance folks, the folks that work at the trailer houses, to see if they're like grasping onto it. I'm not going to work on something that's holiday related for like, you know, hopefully 9 to 10 months. Because again, like I've heard too much holiday music and yet I still smiled when I listened to your track. So, you know, having it ready to go for next season would be huge, and making sure they hear it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's got legs, without a doubt.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay.
Some people argue that the best time to send holiday music is July. I think that's too early, and I usually just push that away. You know what? It depends on who you're sending the holiday music to. Holiday films are being made, you know, way out in advance, right? The film cycle is a long cycle. Advertising, they start making their film, a lot of their stuff in like September, October. But that's like once they finish the back to school cycle, then they start thinking about the holiday cycle. So like that's a good time to send stuff for advertising. For us, if we're working on our cycle is all over the place. Like I just started working on something that's going to come out in September, but last week I had something that they gave me 2 weeks to work on. So for Netflix specifically, I can't really tell you when the best time is to send holiday stuff. I would say in the holidays, honestly. Sorry. So like maybe like October.
That makes sense. That's great. That's super helpful.
Sure.
Okay, we have 2 more. So I was just replying to a couple people that were messaging so that they understand how the sign-up sheet works. This next one is posted, and it's from Millie. So Millie can't chat, but she's on the call.
Oh, okay. Okay. A little skipping ahead. And I didn't speak during it because I was intrigued by how it changed so much. The very opening, I immediately was thinking of our new show called Godless that just came out not too long ago. And I thought there was a really cool, like, dark, country kind of like little mystery to it. Like, I'm unsure, like, is someone about to, show up in the darkness and have a pistol or what? Like, it was cool. It set a tone, it set a mood. The dark, low end vocals echoed that mood. I would find a new singer. I hate to say something mean. I hated his voice personally. It was tough to listen to at times, particularly when he went higher in his register. I also like, okay, the 90s had that as a cool thing to do with the kind of the style of that singing. And I think we should probably leave it in the 90s and only reference it when it's meant to poke fun at the 90s. It's just personal style choice. And then it kind of like just went into like a rock ballad. Cool. I mean, that's for what it is. It's what it is. I'm not going to put it on my iPod. I'm not going to listen to it personally. But if I were to strip it away and use some elements, I definitely already, like, as you heard, my first reaction is I could already place it into something, which is a really good thing. I would love that all of my peers would listen to music that objectively. They don't always, which is why previously I asked, like, what's the intent of the song? And so I think that might be a good kind of like piece to always consider, like, what is the intent of the song that you're presenting? And always make sure that you look back at that intent throughout the process of making and finishing a song to ensure that that's always intact. And if that changes over time, fine, maybe redesign what the intent of the song is, but make sure that, like, the song is true to that intent. Because if it doesn't have a purpose or an intent, it won't have staying power, is the best way to describe it. It'll feel disjointed and it won't really stick to any sort of sync or to any songwriter. Like a songwriter making songs for another artist, totally cool experience. If it's like 3 different kinds of genres and then the lyrics don't match the tone, like, you understand, like, that's a problem in lyrically and making a song, right? Like, it's a tough, disjointed song. So the same applies to making a song for sync, if that's the, like, intent of it.
So good. Okay, last one. We have some questions coming in, but I'm just going to send this song and then, we can talk about your email and all of that. So this is Devil Inside, and it's from Cooper.
Okay. I'm being pinged by a few of my coworkers. I just want to make sure that they know that I will get back to them shortly.
Yeah, we'll have you off here really soon.
Yeah, no problem. Cooper is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Devil Inside. Okay. Cool. I'll stop. It's awesome.
Cooper, you can I'll unmute you. You feel free to chat.
Cool. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Cooper. Are you still there? Hey, man.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Why'd you make this version of this song?
So I basically, when I started, when I joined this course and started looking into sync stuff, I got into, around the same time, I got into some really kind of dark pop artists that were, I found one here. I'm in Nashville. I found one locally. I don't know if you use Ruel's music a lot. I mean, she's in a lot of Netflix shows, but anyways, I got into that and started doing some more co-writes and some collaborations in that kind of dark pop vein. And eventually realized that, I watch, all these HBO and Netflix shows, and I'm like, this stuff gets used a lot too. So I kind of infused the two. I made a full album, created an artist theme. So it's artist music that I play out live, but it's also, I also want to use it for film and television if it's got a spot for it.
This is an original.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. I must have confused it with something else. I thought you had made a dark version of a song that already existed.
No.
Which I thumbs up either way, I suppose. Grabbed me immediately. Really, really cool intro. Really, vocals spot on for the tone. Awesome, man. Love it. You could maybe be a little less obvious with the lyric rhyme at the end of your first verse. If I were to be like super nitpicky, you could maybe, hide it a little bit. It was like a little too on point with like, here's my rhyme and I'm finishing it right here. Because it already had that like cool vibe. I was almost like expecting you to hide the rhyme a little bit.
Gotcha.
Totally dug it. It was telling a little bit of a story. It got me intrigued, and I could put it in different things. It certainly has an intent and a direction, but you could also use it in something that might be unexpected. And something with that, I think with these kind of legs, you can also like, I think you could also flip the switch on it, right? I feel like I didn't listen to the whole thing. I don't know if you like doubled the tempo halfway through and did something crazy, but you could probably also do that and give it some like fat beat that takes it to a different place, and it would still be a potentially successful tune.
Yeah.
Which makes it versatile for trailers, particularly, right? Because like a lot of times you hear trailers take a turn.
Sure.
They get you a moody setup, and then they drop a beat on you, and they take you into an action place, or they take you into a different spot. And this kind of a thing could totally do that. I dug it, man.
Awesome.
Really
Very cool.
Fantastic. Wow. Your feedback has been so on point and helpful, insightful, and so generous. I can't tell you. Like I know everybody here will agree. It's really, really helpful. So thank you. And thank you for taking the time, a whole longer than an hour with us and just sharing. I'm so glad you had, no, thanks. I'm glad you had a little extra time because we were just like taking up all your time with a million questions and have so much that we wanted to know from you. So thank you. And you're getting tons of thank yous and you rock and amazing amazingness. We had 100 people on this call. So that's kind of like, we don't always have 100 people. I think somehow you're muted. 100 people on the call. So,
Wow. That's so cool.
people were like, Chris, I'm showing up. So they were here to hear from you. And I really thank you.
Awesome.
If you want to give your email and whatever you want to say about that.
Yeah, I'm going to throw my email in here and totally, if I didn't get to your question, like, please hit me up with it. I'm happy to answer offline. If it's like a really burning question that you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what the answer to this question is, or like this will impact me greatly. If you can answer this for me, do that. If it was just like a question to like progress the conversation along, like maybe hang on to it. But like truly, if it's something that means a lot because it's going to help you out, I'm happy to answer those offline.
You're the best. We really, really appreciate your time and congratulations on getting married. And thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Talk to y'all soon. Bye, y'all.